There is an adage that warns against making predictions, especially if they have anything to do with the future. It's a fun way to protect yourself against unforeseen factors that can change the course of history, and quickly. The benefit of science and data research is we can see and document current trends. Those people, like futurist Nik Badminton, study that information and then they project potential outcomes. The predictions from some have been remarkably accurate. Nikola Tesla, for example, predicted Wi-Fi going way back to 1909. Jules Verne foresaw a man on the moon in 1865. And what about Ray Bradbury? He foretold of earbuds in 1953. Edward Bellamy envisioned debit cards in 1888. Even still, few envisioned the world we live in today. Well, except for Gene Roddenberry, who envisioned the communicator and tricoder and warp drives, and the granddaddy of them all, beam me up Scotty transporter. That begs the question, what is in the near future for us? We invited futurist Nik Badminton to join us for a conversation that matters about the ways in which our world will potentially change in creative and radical ways.
Conversations That Matter is a partner program for the Center for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you.
Welcome. We're going to look into the future. There are three things that I'm particularly interested in, and there's, like virtually everything these days, a tremendous amount of confusion around them.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, self-driving or autonomous vehicles, and the singularity, if we can get to that topic as well.
Sure.
These are things that I go, like the singularity, actually, I want to start there, because I think, wow, wouldn't it be fabulous if I can download myself into some kind of hard drive and then figure out which kind of vehicle I'm going to move around in.
Yeah.
And then maybe autonomous vehicles become a moot point anyways. Do you actually think that there's any hope that the singularity will ever happen?
So a lot of people speculated about the singularity. It was Kurzweil, Ray Kurzweil, like renowned futurist, inventor, really super smart guy that started talking about the singularity kicking in around about 2042 to 2045. The idea that we get to a point where intelligence and artificial intelligence surpasses that of the entire human intelligence on the planet, that we can meld with machines, we can theoretically download ourselves and sort of transcend who we are as individuals. I think we're a long way from there. I think it's fantastic to have these big lofty goals. Actually, in sort of the academic world, people don't really talk about the singularity so much anymore. They talk about exponential growth and change. But as you sort of unravel technology, as you understand the genome and you start to go deeper, there are more and more things that you have to learn to decode them. So you never really get to a point where you truly decode everything so you can create mechanisms to really work out who we are, download us and work us into various machines or different situations.
So, but we are getting to the point where we're able to create prosthetic limbs that can speak to those neurological connections or nervous impulses from our brain that would maybe make my finger do this, and then can make that prosthetic do the same thing.
Yeah.
So is that not one of the steps along the way on a continuum that would get us to the point where we're saying, okay, I can, through an electronic impulse in my brain, make my finger do that?
Yeah.
Well, then why can't I take those same electronic impulses in my brain and turn them into some kind of code that still is the essence of me?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about how we're talking now and how we operate in life, we do it pretty effortlessly.
Seamlessly.
You know, with these prosthetic limbs that do use EEGs and do use brain signals to control how they operate, it takes a lot of concentration, certainly at the beginning, takes a lot of training for that person. Being able to seamlessly walk down the street and do various things, it's not exactly there today.
Right.
I think that there's a lot to be said about working out how to, decode how the brain works exactly to undertake a task like that. So, for example, I would actually say that me doing this with my finger isn't the same as me trying to get a prosthetic limb to do exactly the same. So it's not a replication of how the brain's supposed to work with a physical entity.
Yeah, but my brain had to learn how to do this too.
Did it?
Yes.
Well, subconsciously.
Well, because when I was a child, You know, I didn't have control over these digits, and my brain started to figure out how to do it.
But you didn't know that you were learning to pick things up and whatever, you were just doing it, right?
Well, yeah. That's how good my brain is.
Exactly, yeah, and we are. And you know, I always come back to who we are as humans. We are the strongest platform for sensory processing.
Right.
So if you think about it, consciously, I process around about 5,000 bits of information per second. Subconsciously, I process about 50 million bits of information per second. Okay. So those subconscious processes, there's about 35,000 different activities that go on that we make decisions about at a subconscious level.
Right.
That we're not aware of. So,
well, I know. Yeah. I realize, and I'm just saying, I hope, because I'm hoping that somehow I'll be able to push back the death envelope, because I don't want to stop this process of continual learning. And then once I acquire that information, I want to be able to hang on to it and use it for centuries to come. Yeah. Well, based on this vehicle that I'm residing in right now, that's not going to happen. Right. And so it's wishful thinking on my behalf. You know, as you're talking, I realize, I don't know how many billions of brain cells we have, and on my latest reading, the glia in our brain is even more extensive than the brain cells. Yeah. And you need both. Yeah. And then so you're telling me no to singularity? Well,
I'm saying that it's incredibly difficult to get to that point, and I think the singularity never really arrives. I think we're always chasing after something like that. I mean, consciousness, you know, personality. These things aren't very easy to encode, right? So
well, you shouldn't be such a downer. You're supposed to be going, yes, it's going to happen. You know, I have great faith in technology.
You know, I'm a futurist. I'm a futurist. I'm a realist, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. There are pop futurists that walk around, that wave the flags and saying the world's going to be this and this and this. It's like, it's not that simple. I work with people in research laboratories. I work with organizations. I talk to people that are in these situations that can benefit from technologies like prosthetic limbs. And it's hard. These are hard problems, and it takes focused effort and billions of dollars of investment, right?
So I've got to get you to hang on for a second while we take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
And a long time. I'm in agreement with you that it's a long way off, if ever possible. Who knows? Not going to be in my lifetime. Yeah. But then that does bring us to something that we look at when we go, okay, that is tantalizingly within reach. And that is the concept of artificial intelligence. Yeah. If it's going to be so difficult for us to create some sort of singularity, well, what then is the likelihood of truly having artificial intelligence?
So there's two parts of this. Artificial intelligence is here today. It can solve very narrow problems. Yes. It's better than us at chess. It's better than us at games like the Chinese game of Go and.
But only just no.
Like emphatically. So really? There's something really interesting.
There has been this leap that they've moved beyond human capacity.
So Google DeepMind. Yeah. Last year, they ran a competition between Lee Sedol, 9th Dan Go player, and DeepMind, their computer AlphaGo. And AlphaGo beat the player 4-1. But what they did during that gameplay was Lee Sedol learned new and intuitive ways of playing Go from the computer. Then DeepMind evolved their technology into something called AlphaZero. It learned chess in 4 hours and became completely unbeatable. And the way that it played opened up a new way of playing strategically, planning out games of chess that's completely revolutionized how grandmasters think about playing. And then it used an idea called tabula rasa, where it taught itself from the rules of the game of Go. Before, when it was with AlphaGo, it actually learned all the games that had gone ahead of it before the day that it played, and it learned during gameplay. With AlphaZero, it just taught itself, and after 40 days, it became truly unbeatable. So it surpassed us. When it's very narrow problems and it's algorithmic, there are rules and there are strategies, artificial intelligence completely takes over.
Yeah, the difference, of course, between the machine and the chess player is the chess player can get up and then go make a cup of tea.
Yeah.
And drink it.
Yeah.
And say, ooh, I think I'll have a biscuit with that as well.
Hugely inefficient.
Yeah, hugely inefficient.
Right.
But also a wide variety of talents.
Indeed.
You can get in a car and drive away and do all those other things. That machine is programmed for that one thing.
Yes.
Is that really artificial intelligence, or is that
Absolutely.
just machine learning?
So if you look at the definition of artificial intelligence, it's being able to replicate a certain element of human intelligence. So strategic planning, a game, playing chess, playing Go, and whatever. Back office duties like checking how correct a contract is.
Yes.
Things like that. They're very narrow problems, and they call it narrow AI. You know, it's very specific. It's incredibly good at doing that today. Then there's this idea of artificial general intelligence, which is an artificial intelligence can kind of do anything that it really wants. It has the sensory input, it can process the data, it can learn how we do, and then it can maybe surpass us. We're not there, and we're a long, long way from that. And researchers today that are programming everything from like Sophia the robot to, and there's some companies in Vancouver as well doing some really interesting things. We are decades away from any semblance of that sort of general intelligence, really.
Well, you know that Nik Bostrom at Oxford University, he's concerned about AI, and so is Elon Musk, and even Bill Gates raises, the flag of concern. Are you concerned about it?
I'm not concerned about artificial intelligence. I'm concerned about the actors behind it. The people that train it could either accidentally or purposefully build bias into artificial intelligence. The people that train it, prepare the data, and guide it along its way are the people that shape what it can do. Artificial intelligence isn't that, hey, here comes Terminator bashing through the door, taking over humankind. Skynet, it's a myth. Science fiction's done a very good job to perpetuate the idea of, the robot overlords are coming to take over the world, and we're not there. Behind these systems are people designing the systems. That's really important, and it's really good to have ethical guardrails around that, and also very careful consideration of how that applies to, rules and regulations, human-centered design, and the such like.
Every human design system brings bias with it, though.
It can do.
Well, how do you separate yourself out from your experience in life, and you're building whatever it is based on the experience that you bring to that?
Yeah.
I don't know how you program bias out.
Yes.
And as a result, well then, are you building that human bias into the machine?
Yeah, so data inherently has bias, so being able to work out the architecture of education for artificial intelligence and these systems is incredibly important. And you really have to step back from who you are, and you have to step into the role of really understanding the ethics of how you want that to operate in the world, and also who we are as humans and how do we treat everyone equally. So we have to, it's very purposeful. It's the same with email marketing. It's the same with any of these targeted ads online. There are some that are hugely unethical, and there are some that are very sort of fair and balanced to try and just communicate to you, a human, with empathetic reactions to, the words and the imagery that you see. Same with AI. Yes, it's been very difficult to have bias removed entirely. I'll give you one example. There was a insurance processor in the States, and they started to employ artificial intelligence. I think it was around medical insurance, and obviously there's elements of risk that you have to consider, and the AI was learning, from the forms and from the different data points, levels of risk. What they didn't realize was happening, because they were using image recognition, the computer along the way learned and started to infer that there was a high risk for people that have terrible handwriting, because it inferred a lower level of education, which you're actually not allowed to be biased against.
I thought you were going to say that it inferred maybe some frailty or ill health.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, but a lower. So and the AI basically taught itself that
to read handwriting. So people in low-income neighborhoods with terrible writing were deemed to be a higher risk.
And that's not strictly the case. And you're not allowed to do that if you are a human processing that form as well. So people are starting to learn that some of these things happen accidentally, and you can build that in early in the days of building those systems for, the business that you operate in, governments or whatever.
This is our second break. We'll be back in a moment.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
Okay, up until now, I wasn't worried about AI,
Yeah.
but as you start to talk about this bias being built in, I am concerned because I don't see us evolving in a way where we're learning to separate ourselves from that bias.
Yeah.
There was a time when I was younger and I was growing up and idealistic. I recognized that there were political leaders who would say, yes, I won representing this constituency,
Yeah.
but now that I am in this position of authority, I represent the population as a whole. I don't know that I have that same faith that principle
Right.
is a guiding principle in democracy here in North America, the way that I see it being practiced now.
Right.
And if I'm worried about it there, so that there's been this de-evolution of a higher moral standard, well, could it not also be happening in the lab?
Yeah, absolutely it could. I mean, and this is where it gets really tough. So disciplines of philosophy and ethics meet computer science, meet data science. It's whole new disciplines. So whole new disciplines are being formed around these entire new systems that are being built. No longer is it algorithmic, do A, B, and C. Here's some software to do that. Now it's like, look at your universe, learn how that universe works, infer how we're going to operate, predict the next steps that we're going to undertake, and communicate with us in a way that feels human and is ultimately helpful.
Wow.
It's an exciting time, but there's a lot of people that are going to make a lot of mistakes. I mean, if you look at the large tech companies, they've got thousands and thousands of developers. I was chatting to someone from Google DeepMind. They've got 1,000 people working on AI.
Is that enough?
Well, they don't think so. They're growing. And it's a huge amount of time. But incredibly diverse people, like PhDs. It's incredible. These very, very smart people are just trying to re-architect how our world's working.
So you talk about artificial intelligence not in the sense of HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, but as in intelligence that has specific applications.
Yes.
So in some ways I go, okay, well, I get that. We can catch these problems. Am I interpreting bad handwriting as being somebody of higher risk? We can catch those kinds of things because they don't have this ubiquitous presence or power. But one of those areas, of course, that we continually think about, and it will take AI to make this happen, is autonomous vehicles. Do you actually see that happening in the near future?
So it's already happening around the world. Actually, small autonomous buses that are operating in industrial and research parks, they're already there. There's already trials happening with Google's Waymo and ride-hailing application. That's already been licensed down in California, and that's already going to happen out there. There's already autonomous vehicles in a community out in Florida. It's a retirement community with 100,000 people, and there's a company called Voyage that's running autonomous taxi fleets in there.
Third and final break. We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
Is it only autonomous vehicles, or is it that in combination with ones where there's a fallible human being behind the wheel?
Yeah, it's integrated environments. More than 50 cities around the world are already running trials around like self-driving vehicles. We have to teach a car to drive for 2, 3, 4 million miles before it can really get a sense of what it's like to drive. And that sort of shows you how difficult it is from a sensory perspective to operate on a road where there's pedestrians and people on bikes and other cars and all
construction and potholes and ice and snow. And
absolutely. Yeah, so we've got a long way to go. But you go down to San Francisco, I go down there quite often. There's 20 or 30 different companies like putting together autonomous vehicles. They're driving around everywhere. The biggest company that's driving the most cars in California right now is Apple. And you'll never see their autonomous vehicle. And you'll never realize that it's an autonomous vehicle because all the others have got those big sensors on the roofs. Mm-hmm. There's nothing on the Apple car, it just looks like a car. Within 5 years, it's going to be very common to see self-driving vehicles everywhere.
So you actually see it happening. Because I understand one of the impediments to this is that the car manufacturer is going to say, well, I'm not quite certain that I'm willing to take on all of the potential liability should something go wrong.
So these companies, the car companies, GM, Ford, whoever, are undertaking a massive shift in their business models. Mm-hmm. This is how change happens, it's the business model. So, in 10 years' time, Ford isn't going to be a company that necessarily makes money from selling cars. It's going to be a company that operates fleets of its vehicles, and it will be making money from on-demand vehicle hire. And we're not even going to have to call these things cars anymore, because they're not going to have steering wheels. They're like driving offices. I actually even speculate in some of my presentations that it's going to be cheaper to have a self-driving vehicle drive you around very casually in the dark hours of the morning instead of getting a hotel room, because it'll be cheaper.
Now that's an interesting thought, one that never crossed my mind.
They're not cars anymore at that point.
They're just a moving space. They're
a moving space. And do you know what's really interesting about something like Apple getting into it? Apple's ultimately an entertainment company. Mm-hmm. You have someone for 30 minutes in an enclosed space, what do? You entertain them. If you own that infrastructure, then you make the money based on that fact.
Wow. What an interesting concept.
It's the business model disruption that comes with technology. That's the thing that changes everything.
But what's it going to do to my joy of driving?
Do you really enjoy driving?
When I get out on the road, when I'm out in the interior, and I do.
So I think this about driving. I think that we've been told that driving is a joy. Last year I drove 5,000 kilometers across the States. Yeah. And I can tell you, there were parts that was, driving, this is fine. But I would say 95% of that time, I would rather be hanging out, looking out the windows, talking to my friend without the arduous sort of nature of holding onto a steering wheel and pointing in a straight line, especially through places like Idaho and Kansas. Right? So I think that we've been told so many things by people so that we buy into their ideas of what our life should be. So you love driving. No one really loves driving. We've just been told that we love driving, right? I love my job. No one really loves their job. We've just been told that that's the way that you need to operate to get by in this world, right? So,
okay, I'm out of time. One last question.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic about the future, or are you pessimistic? Because there's an awful lot of people who are pessimistic. I choose to be an optimist.
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm a huge optimist. I have to be an optimist. I'm a humanist. I'm a futurist that really works out 10, 20 years into the future. And if we don't have optimism, fundamentally we're going to end up in a bad place. Ostensibly, about 95% of my time is about the positive nature of technology, the disruption of business models that brings us back to who we are as humans.
And how life on this planet is actually getting better, not worse.
We hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That's great.